This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org, or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. I'm Anneliese, an exercise physiologist and nutritionist.
And I'm Melanie. I'm also an exercise physiologist and nutritionist.
And we have one of our favorite guests back in the studio today, Miss Shannon Nolte.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Good to be here.
And if you guys are new to Shannon, she works here at Positive Choice with us. She works in our Options Pre-Bariatric program, also our weight management fasting program. And she is a licensed professional counselor and also does one-on-one. So all the things.
All of it. Yes. I was going to come up with something clever, but nothing came to my head. I just... brain fart.
You wear many hats.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes, and if you are interested in working with Shannon, we'll go ahead and put a link to get in touch with Shannon down at the bottom.
Thanks, guys.
Yay.
So, Shannon, today you came here to talk about self-care.
Yeah, I love self-care.
Don't we all need more self-care?
Yes.
Everybody does. Even if you're doing the most self-care, you can always still do more self-care. And I'm not saying that in a perfectionistic way, like you have to have an optimum level, but we all need it in our lives. We all need it, and there's no limit to how much.
Okay, so here is the lingering question. Am I selfish for doing self-care?
Well, I guess it depends on your philosophy. So there is a certain... So not in the negative connotation way, no, you're not selfish. But there is a sort of like self-interest when it comes to taking the time to do that self-care. So at first it might feel selfish because I am taking my time away from others, or I'm not doing something that I quote unquote should be doing, or working as much as I quote unquote should be, you know, like all those things that we place on ourselves. So it might feel that way at first, but there is some joy in being a little bit selfish in the sense where it's self-interest and I'm helping myself be better in my world. So not in the negative connotation way, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I am of that mindset,
Yeah.
but I think that especially for women, we are so conditioned to be people pleasers, right? We think that our role is to serve others. So oftentimes our day starts with, what are everybody else's needs? How am I going to meet everybody else's needs?
Yeah.
And this idea that somehow I'm supposed to take time away from my spouse, I'm supposed to take time away from my work or time away from my kids to do something for myself, like what do you that's not.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it should, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think it's conditioned as women. And then also if we think about for men as well, like if they're supposed to be this stereotypical, like I provide for everyone, I don't have my emotions, I don't have time to focus on my feelings because I need to take out or control fires too. I think that there's a lot of preconceived notions of like our roles in the world, and that's all external. So with self-care, it's kind of this chance to look more internal and to do things more for the self, and to, you know, like that old metaphor of like, you know, when the oxygen masks from the plane, we want to take care of ourselves first before we take care of someone else.
And, you know, something that I was thinking about is like, if we were to define what self-care is, because I think that's where there's a little bit of like muddy water here, right? We're like, well, what is self-care? Because when you hear self-care, what I'll tell you, what I think is a massage. Right. Hey, but is it really?
So yes, it could be, and it could be so many other things. And you're right, there is a stereotype. It's the pedicure, pampering, going to the spa. But self-care can also look like exercise, going for a walk, Maybe that means taking time to read a book. It could be sitting down with a nice hot cup of tea. It could be setting a boundary by saying no if you're overbooked or overscheduled. It could be allowing space for expressing an emotion. If you have an emotion or something you need to talk about. So self-care can look like a lot of different things. And even that goes along to how am I nourishing myself, or how am I sleeping, or how am I
how's my social life?
Yeah, how's my social life? How's my romantic life? How's my all of it? So yeah, it can go to the stereotypical space, but really self-care is sort of this web of like how we interact with ourself and our world. Do we value taking care of ourselves like we would value taking care of those other people we commit ourselves to, like you were talking about earlier?
In using your example of the oxygen mask, I love that because it really does fuel the same way that it perpetuates in our lives. So if you don't have oxygen, you have now a limited time that you can save your child, right? So the same thing applies with all of this stuff. So if I am not putting a priority on my health, if I am not putting a priority on my sleep, my bandwidth for giving quality care to other people, offering the best of myself, that's now limited.
Right. Definitely. If y'all have ever heard of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like if we don't take care of those basic needs, like our biological needs such as sleep, food, we've all heard the term hangry, or like if we ever have been too tired, it's hard to like function in our day normally. You're right, the bandwidth is not there. And same thing if we don't feel safe, which is the next rung up above. And then if we don't have our social needs met, it's hard to feel really like we can thrive in our world. Or if we don't feel like we're, kind of in our getting our esteem needs met. It's all these things that kind of layer on top of each other. And self-care is kind of being an advocate for yourself and saying, no, that this is important. I do need to prioritize myself, and I need to prioritize my sleep, and I need to say no more when appropriate.
And it's good that we were able to differentiate between the expectation it has to be like literal pampering, which I will say that's still self-care.
Yeah, totally.
You don't have to spend money to do it.
Well, it's also the thing of like, when we go back to these fundamental needs. So if I am not getting movement in my body, I'm not sleeping, and I'm not setting appropriate boundaries, all the massages and manicures in the world aren't going to make me feel fulfilled.
Totally.
They aren't going to balance that out.
Yeah, it's that Band-Aid, right? Like I think you've used the
Band-Aid and the dam.
Exactly. Yeah. It's gonna help for a moment, and then, it's going to be the same thing over and over. If I'm still not getting sleep, it's going to be a detriment. So yeah, we do have to spend time being the one that says, this is what I need to do. And we have to speak up. And I think that's the big thing. No has become one of my favorite words. It used to be, speaking of like, people pleasers, being someone who comes from that's what you need to be doing. It does take a lot of effort sometimes to say no, but that in and of itself can be a big self-care tool. But yeah, that no and speaking up for yourself, and being the one that really is pushing forward what self-care looks like to you and how you need to see it in your world, because no one else is really gonna manage that for you.
What a challenging skill that is.
It is.
To learn to say no, especially when it is about valuing your own time, right?
Yeah.
I made an appointment with myself that I'm going to exercise, in the morning, and then somebody needs my time. How do you honor that appointment you made with yourself?
Yeah, it's always. I don't like always putting like hard and fast rules on things, but we have to assess kind of what's going on. Is this an emergency? Does this person need me right now? If yes, that seems more important, right? If no, if say for instance they had a hard day, they want someone to talk to, okay, I'm free in a couple hours, I'll give you a call. I'm more than happy to talk that out with you. I have an appointment. They don't have to know an appointment, but I have an appointment that I got to get to, but I'm here for you in a couple of hours.
And I love the term appointment, because it is, in a sense, you're making an appointment with yourself. But then when you hear appointment, I think a lot of people just think, oh, doctor's appointment.
Right.
Yeah, that's important. Okay, I got to let them do that.
Right.
And they're more like you say, oh, I got to work out this morning. I'm like, no, I need you now.
Right.
They can talk through that. That's not important.
Right. But it is so important, right?
Yeah.
You're so right. There is sort of this like judgment on certain activities, on whether it's justified or not justified for taking up our time.
No one should tell you how you live your life. You
Right.
do you, man. That's what you got to do. Do
Totally.
what you have to do to be the best you.
Right. So yeah, I think there are some ways that you can kind of work through that, because life does happen and there are things that do, but when we really think about like, is this truly an emergency, or does this person like truly need me at this exact moment? Child and children care, that's a little different. That might be okay, how do I work my self-care around their schedule, because that's a little different story. But when we're talking kind of the grand scheme of a lot of the things that we put pressure on ourselves to be there for, whether that's I have to be on top of everything, I have to say yes to every single project, I can't turn people down, I can't say I need a self-care day or a nap. I think that's where we can kind of say like, how is this serving me long term? And that does change. Like everybody's a little more extroverted or introverted. Some people like love helping others, and so that brings them passion and joy. Some people maybe they use that as a way to manage what's going on for them. And so it's kind of a little bit of introspection about what works best for you and your life and your personality, and what it is that you truly need at that moment.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so self-care looks different for everybody.
Yeah, totally.
One thing I keep thinking about, because I hear this a lot in my classes, and it's a thing about either it's a patient who's a caretaker for a parent, or a patient who's a caretaker for their special needs child, or any of the above like that, where they're like, but I am their caretaker and I have to be there for them. I just don't have time for myself. Yeah. So I think those are more common than we want to admit.
Totally.
And those are the patients I think who struggle the most, is finding that time. So what could you provide informationally for those kinds of people who are just like, but my life is this person, I have to be there.
Right. Right. And I think that is a challenge, because I think that's where we see sometimes that food does come in, because it's something where you're still at home. Maybe the person's in bed, maybe the person is, you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes to yourself. It's a quick little me time or quick little stress reliever to manage in that moment. So it's kind of sometimes about finding those similar pockets of time and doing something for you that's not necessarily food related. So it could be just, I'm going to spend that time reading a book that I enjoy, or, while they're down or while they're resting, maybe it's I'm going to do a little exercise video in the room. Maybe it's, if you have the funds, finding a caretaker that can come for like half of an afternoon or just a couple hours to kind of give you that time to leave the home. Or if there's another person that is available to just come and watch for a few hours, like a family member or a friend. But sort of being a little bit creative about who is in your corner and who can you rely on to sort of reach out for help. And sometimes self-care is saying, I need a little bit of help.
That's the hardest thing to do when you're a people pleaser, because the last thing you want to do is say, I need help, I'm not good at what I do.
Right.
Because that's how I would interpret that, which I know is not the case.
Right.
But it's like, I'm clearly not good enough, I need help. And that's why I think a lot of people in that position don't reach out for help, because it's basically saying to the world, I can't do this.
Right.
And that's not how it is. We all need a little help sometimes.
For sure. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, where it's like, I don't want to be a burden.
Yes. Then there's that worry of
Right.
like, well, no, now I'm putting something on them and they're going to say yes because they feel that they should. But then, that whole thing, guilt and feeling like you're not enough.
Yeah. And you're right. It's like, it's not that that's the case. It's just that we all do need time for ourselves. And, it is something that does take bravery to announce and to share and to say, and it's well worth it in the end. Sometimes just like, 15, 30 minutes, an hour of just me being with myself or me doing something that brings me joy or something that brings me calm can really do a lot for my day. Like just even a quick little walk around the block can sometimes shift my attitude or make me feel revived when I was feeling maybe more tired or low before. So it doesn't have to be long. It can just be about, reaching out and voicing that I need a little bit of help. I need a little bit of support. Can you come for a little bit of time?
I like that.
Do you think that this can start with our own feelings of worthiness in terms of like this idea of putting myself on the priority list, wherever that is during the day, just the idea of, taking 5-minute time out to exercise or something like that. Do you think that can be kind of molded with even my self-value, if I think I'm even worth doing that?
Yeah, totally. We spend time on the things, we value. And if we think that we're bottom of the list, we're probably not going to take that time. And so, I think there can be a lot of low self-worth that could coincide with not taking the time to do that self-care. And then that might be part of, where reaching out for help can come in, right? And that might mean having more time with trusted friends who can sort of build that self-worth, working with a therapist, journaling, mindfulness. All of those are also self-care too, is finding ways to raise that self-worth and that value in taking care of you.
It just sounds like self-care is just literally anything that brings you joy.
Yeah.
Just anything that brings you joy. Well, I guess if we're saying that, like, food could be involved in that. So if your problem is food, maybe not that.
Well, and I think the thing with food too is that it's it can be self-care and it can be a positive self-care. But when food is the only way that we achieve self-care, I think that's where the issue kind of lies in. If we have no other way of taking care of ourselves except for eating, I think that's where we can kind of see that being the issue. But yes, I mean, who's to say that, like, on your birthday you can't really enjoy your favorite kind of cake and really say like, no, Grandma, I want strawberry cake this year, not your favorite.
I want the food I want for my birthday. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's always on a spectrum, right? Like food can be self-care until you're doing it to the point that it is now causing a detriment.
Right. Just like exercise. It's a wonderful thing. We all love it. But if I'm exercising for 8 hours a day, my knees are going to be shot. I'm going to be so tired. I'm like, if that's the only way I can manage my day, that's going to be not managing it. Right. So you're right. Anything can be, if we only do that, it can be a detriment.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could say, like, self-care is the thing that brings us joy. And if it is leading to a detriment, then we have to start, questioning where that joy is.
Is that avoidance then?
Right. Yeah.
Totally.
It can morph, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we just have to be, aware for ourselves, right? If I'm only doing this and it's no longer really helping me, maybe it's time to take a step back or find something different. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you started this off by saying massages and spa treatments, but it's funny, even in the pandemic, that was one of when we were quarantined initially, that was one of the things that brought me so much joy was buying way too much skincare. And so at first I was like, yeah, I'm doing something for myself. This is wonderful. And then it was like, I have way too much and I've spent way too much on this darn self-care.
I can't be any cleaner or softer. I don't know what to do.
I now look like
You're that filter.
Bright,
you're that phone filter where they remove all creases and wrinkles, and you're just smooth. Like, I'm smooth.
I don't feel bad. I did that with hair products. I have so much hair products now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just anything can tip us over the edge, right?
Right. You're like when you're now stocked for the next 2 years. Yeah. You're probably good. We can move on to different
forms.
And then
of
when
self-care.
You notice, I have 2 years stock and I still want more.
Yeah, because we're trying to fill the hole that can't be filled with skincare.
I want to socialize skincare. At least I'll look good for when I do eventually. Yay.
When I come out of my hole.
I'm empty inside, but my skin looks fabulous now.
My dog is envious of my skin.
Well, this is, the whole concept of self-care is just so funny because like the whole fundamental aspect of it is like there's the basic needs we have, and then there's the other parts that just psychologically makes you just feel better.
Yeah.
But like, when we really get into it, there are actual fundamental biological needs that need to be met in order for you to have adequate self-care, like making sure you are sleeping adequately every single night, making sure you are eating well, not eating junk food all the time, making sure you are actually having socialization with people. We are social beings. We need to socialize, whether that's via, video calls or going out on a walk with a friend or, what have you. But we need that part too. And there's so many on that list of just fundamental human needs that we just need to meet. And I feel like people forget those. We forget that just trying to stay alive is a fundamental of just self-care. Like we want you to live a nice functional life, right?
Right. Yeah, because it's that is the really basic thing. And it's funny too, even like as you were saying that, I started thinking about like even going to the doctor, even going to the dentist, even like all these things that kind of help us just prolong our lives or make sure that we're living a quality life are also part of it.
Bathing.
Yes. Yes.
And if you're listening to this during the pandemic, you'll know that maybe that alone fell by the wayside.
If you have to count back, it's part of the quarantine special.
Okay, Shannon, so speaking of fundamental needs, you are a mental health expert.
Yep.
Let's talk about what are some fundamental mental health needs.
Yeah, so safety being one of them. If we're feeling safe in our environment. So whether that's like, am I feeling secure with who I'm around? Am I feeling safe in my job? Am I feeling safe where I can get my needs met? Safety is a big thing. And that could just be too also like, feeling safe in your environment, I would say. Connection is another big thing. You hit on that. Yeah. It's a big part. Even if you're more introverted, there is a level of connection that we do need. The amount is going to be specific to the person, but and same thing too with safety. Like everybody has their own threshold, but we do need some form of connection. We need people in our corner. We need people that we can have fun with, or if we're into romance, we need someone we can be romantic with. We need someone that we can, feel safe and secure and heard from. And then let me think. Of course, our biological needs. And I say that's honestly the thing that we need to manage, like above all. If we're not getting sleep, we're not going to be connected. We're not going to be safe feeling, right? If we're not fed and nourished, probably those are going to fall by the wayside as well. Because if I'm really hungry, there's no way I want to sit and like chat for a while, right? Or if I'm overly full too, I'm probably going to be really tired and I'm not going to want to like really engage like I would. So getting our biological needs met too are going to be things that psychologically support us.
Yes. So getting water in, and also sex.
Yes.
I mean, that is worth mentioning. That is a fundamental human need that goes with the connection, that goes with that connection part. And, we mean like sex with a trusted partner.
Yeah.
Right? Because that can go down the road of, too much and coming from a not great place.
Yeah,
too.
definitely. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. But yeah, that intimacy is very important. And whether that is, however you define sex, that intimacy is very important. For that closeness.
And shelter.
Yeah, definitely.
That goes with the safety thing.
Yeah.
Right? When we have shelter, that allows for a feeling of safety and security.
Definitely. I'd say finding a way to, again, be there for yourself and make sure that those are, and cleanliness I think does, as we were talking about bathing earlier, that is part of it, but I think finding that way to be there for yourself and to really sort of check in with your emotions. How am I feeling? Is this loneliness because I need connection? How am I managing this loneliness when it comes up? If I'm feeling sort of anxious or uneasy or unsteady, how can I manage that differently? What are some ways that I can care for myself right here and now? And if it is something that's biological, maybe I do need to feed myself. Maybe I do need to go for a little walk. Maybe I do need to just take a nap. Put down the coffee.
Those are the best.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good nap?
Yeah.
And if you don't, go
Me.
away. Then
I
go
don't
away.
do well with naps. I wake up, I am groggy, I am angry with the world, and I'm starving.
Oh my gosh. I love a good nap.
I think I'm like a hibernating bear. It's
Yes. There's nothing better.
But yeah, I just love talking about self-care because it's like, oh, just be about you.
Yeah.
This is so good. When it comes down to it though, like if people are really having trouble with managing it in their day or finding the time to do that, because like I've met those people, like I work 12 hours, I start at this time, I go to bed super late, like I don't know when I can fit that into my day because my life is just working.
Yeah.
And we've met those people. So how could we find a way, or how could they find a way, I should say, to incorporate more self-care into their daily lives when their life is already jam-packed
Right.
for so much stuff, right? If you're working 12 hours, like driving a truck, for example, when do you fit in exercise?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think it's really about finding what works for your lifestyle, right? So for instance, like a nurse, right? If they're on their feet for 12-hour shifts, that's a lot of walking, right? That's a lot of movement. Does it really make sense to add in more exercise? I don't know, maybe not. Maybe so. It depends on kind of you and kind of what your goals and what level of health is. So maybe for that person, that might mean like, I'm going to make sure like on my lunch break, I'm going to take my lunch break and I'm going to take my break that is for me. I'm not going to work through it. And I'm going to maybe go outside and sit under the tree and meditate, so to speak, right? Or I'm going to have that like nice time for myself. If it is the truck driver who's in, maybe that does mean every few hours, I'm going to make sure, if the time slot allows, whatever works into my driving schedule, that I'm going to get out. When I go for my bathroom break, I'm going to do a couple laps around the, whatever you call it.
Rest area things.
There you go.
Yeah, those thingies.
All the words have like flown out of my head. But yeah, maybe I'll take a couple laps around the rest area. Maybe that means I'm going to, when I get to my final destination for the night, maybe I'll do some push-ups against the truck and do some squats or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So kind of finding ways, and sometimes it is about being creative, and sometimes it's about just using what is available to you to your advantage, because I know so many people who don't take their lunch breaks, don't take their PTO if they have it, don't, even just take time to do a mental health day. If, say, for instance, that's something that's an added benefit of their job where they have that PTO saved up for themselves, but they're not using it, right? So sometimes it is, and not everybody has that luxury in their job. But like if you do, take advantage of it. We don't have to be kind of workhorses all the time. We can say, I'm going to take my actual break today.
And I also think that we get stuck thinking that the pieces in our lives are immovable.
Yeah.
So we're like, no, nothing is changeable. And the reality is that technically everything is changeable, right? So my little anecdote is I had a patient one time in one of my Healthy Balance classes, and she came in first night. She's like, I don't have any time. She's like, I commute an hour and a half, I work, I have kids. She's like, how am I supposed to add time in for an appropriate amount of sleep? And I just said, look, everything has to be on the table as changeable. Like if you really want to make change in your life, you have to start looking at like everything is possibly changeable. And I said, it really sounds to me like you would gain a whole quality of life if you just had a job that was closer to where you live. And at the time, I went home and kind of tortured myself. I'm like, who are you to tell somebody that?
How dare you?
Yeah, I felt really guilty about that, and I was hoping that she would come back, and I wondered if she would come back to class. But you know what? She did come back to class, and she did change her job.
Oh, wow.
Because she was like, that really hit me. That yes, that was a time suck, and she got herself a new job with a 15-minute commute.
Love it.
And it was all because she was willing to look critically at like, oh, a lot of us, our job is immovable, right? No, that's the thing that's stuck. We have to make money. We have to have that job. But the reality is you don't.
Right. There's options.
Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to change today, but we could start putting that intention that if my priority is myself, if I'm going to put myself on my priority list and make that piece immovable, then it opens up a whole thing.
Totally. I think that's such a good example because I think you're right. I think we do see things a lot of times as fixed. And part of that creativity is finding where could I maybe make some changes? What is most important to me? My stepdad always used to say, like, our life is based on like what we find important. Is the job, like if we're talking about our job, right? Is it the thing that we do? Is it how much money we make? Is it where we're working, right? Like, so, finding what makes most sense importance-wise, if that job is something that doesn't bring you the ultimate value, maybe there's another one out there that would serve my life a little bit better and help me be in my valued living a little bit better. And so I think that's a great example.
And we always value those stories too, where you hear like these people that are running big corporations or they're, grinding themselves to the bone and then they give up their home.
Right.
They sell off their home.
And they move to India and like meditate and take photos or something.
Or they just are like, my life was too much. It was too much. So I downsized. I moved out into a rural area with a property that I could afford, and it affords me to work less. And, so these big things, and sometimes we even have small things that we think are immovable. It could be your spouse. It could be your relationship with a toxic family member. It could be like, who is babysitting your kids? I don't know. Right. All of this stuff has the potential to change. So if it is not bringing you happiness, if it is getting in the way of your own happiness, maybe we consider.
Yeah. It's just being open. That doesn't hurt to be open to other ways of doing things. Doesn't mean, like you said, it has to happen overnight or be immediate or be, it's just we just have to be open.
Right. I'm kind of thinking like, just in the prospect of changing your jobs. Let's say you're looking at your job. It is unfulfilling. It is stressful, whatever. Maybe that is not a piece that we can move right away, right? Like not a lot of us can be like, oh, well, I quit my job and I'll just live with no income until whatever.
Oh, well.
But if we are willing to acknowledge that this job is not serving me, then we can move to the next step. Okay, so then where do I want to go and what steps do I have to take to move my life away from this job?
Totally.
And it might take a couple of years if we need education. It might take, a year of job searching elsewhere. It might take allowing yourself to move to a different city, whatever it is. But as soon as you decide that this is something that is movable and I'm willing to move it for my happiness, huge. And like that goes back to that idea of worth, right? I am investing in myself. And that's part of that self-care too, is I'm investing in me and I'm investing my energy in prioritizing something that will make me feel content in my life. And not saying that the job will, but how it fits into your life. When we're thinking about like, does this bring me joy? Does this bring me contentment? Can I do the things that I really value in my life, in my day? And I think that's a huge thing. We only have so much time in our day, and are we living it as we want to? Yeah. And on that note, Thank you so much for joining us, Shannon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's fun.
Such a fabulous conversation as always.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Feel fulfilled. That was self-care.
Yay! And socialization.
Yay! Back to my hole.
Yeah. We'll all crawl back to our little caves and go hide in them. All right. Well, thank you so much again. And until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.